Good morning, everyone. Rodney Dangerfield once said, "My wife and I, we eat dinner apart. We sleep in separate bedrooms. We take separate vacations. We're doing everything we can to keep our marriage together." Someone said that couples get divorced for the same reason that they got married. This week's Torah portion has the prohibition against mixing milk and meat. Do not cook a kid in its mother's milk, which our rabbis extrapolate to mean that we're not allowed to eat any milk and meat products together. And the question is, if the meat is kosher and the milk is kosher, why can't you combine the meat and the milk? Why does it become a sin the minute you put the milk and the meat together? And one of the answers given to this question, although the Torah does not give us the reason, however, our rabbis give us different interpretations and reasons for this commandment, is that the color white, which is milk, represents kindness. As you know, a mother nurses her baby with her breast milk. She gives to her baby. But furthermore, the more the mother nurses the baby, the more the mother provides milk, the more she receives milk in her ducts of her breast to provide more and more milk for her child. But if the mother withholds her milk and does not nurse the baby, her supply, her source of milk dries up. And that's why milk and whiteness represents kindness, giving. And that's why in the high holidays, when we come to God and ask Him for His kindness, for His mercy, for His forgiveness, to grant us a good year, we wear the color white. However, red represents aggression, violence, blood. And while milk is the color of white, meat is the color of red. We often refer to meat as red meat. And therefore the Torah is telling us that combinations are a positive thing. You see, the word shalom, peace, comes from the word shalem, the Maral Miprag says, which means to complete. Real peace is more like harmony. Two people sing together, they harmonize, and they create a more beautiful sound, more beautiful music than each one could have provided on their own. You see, when couples get married, we're instinctively, intuitively attracted to people that are different than us. As the saying goes, opposites attract. Why would you marry someone that's opposite than you? Because you want to complete yourself. You know that I don't have these qualities, this person has these other qualities, and they will make me whole, they will complete me. So I'll have not only shalom, peace in the house, shalom bayit, but shalem, I'll have completeness. However, when we get married sometimes, these opposites create conflict. And so one of two things could happen. We could either try to suppress the other person, to make them act in a way that's abnormal to them, to conform with our personality, or we could be in constant conflict. However, we often forget that that's why we married them in the first place, because of their differences. And that's why it's said that people get divorced for the same reasons they got married. So maybe if you are a very routine, regimented, structured person, but you have no spontaneity, so you marry someone who's full of adventure and spontaneity. But once you marry them, it's like you're having a conflict because they can't stick to a schedule. But you forget why you married them in the first place. So therefore the Torah teaches us that people with differences should combine, and they should appreciate each other's differences because they complete one another. And they should celebrate their differences and grow by expanding their horizons and going out of their comfort zones to meet the other person who is different than them in certain ways. Maybe you're an introvert, they're an extrovert, but that's a positive combination. That's a combination that forms a third entity that's even better. But there are certain combinations that are forbidden, and that's milk and meat. White, which is kindness, and red, which represents severity and blood and violence and aggression. After all, to eat a piece of meat, you have to kill the animal, and then you have to cook it and cut it up, as opposed to the milk. And so mixing milk and meat represents good and evil. And that's the prohibition of the Torah. There are certain things that could never combine, and that's white and red. Goodness, kindness with violence. We all got the heartbreaking news yesterday, confirming our worst fears, that tomorrow the Hamas Nazi terrorists will release and return to Israel the bodies of the Bibas family, including mother and two beautiful children, Ariel and Kfir, who was abducted at age 4 and Kfir at 9 months old. And what a tragic day it will be in Israel tomorrow. And the world watched this mother in horror, with every mother's worst fear, as the look of dread and terror on her eyes as she clutched her two children. And someone took a picture of her, stood by and did nothing to help her. And many terrorists stood by and did nothing as she was taken off into Gaza for over 500 days. And the cruelty and the evil of Hamas to kill innocent people, let alone a 9-month-old baby. And what makes it even sicker is that Israel, in the agreement, has to release criminals from their prisons in exchange for these bodies. And I blame not only Hamas, I blame the world. Because if every world leader would have stood up from day one and said, they must come home immediately, perhaps with the right pressure, Hamas would have allowed them to come home alive. They were taken alive and they're coming home dead. And this is once again a stark reminder. We have Israel, a society of the color white, of purity, of goodness, of kindness, alongside a society which is, their hands are filled with blood, murderers, criminals, savages, beasts, the most inhumane human beings in the world. And the red and white, good and evil cannot mix. We will carry on being a righteous nation while they're pouring out with violence and celebrating death. We as a society are proud to celebrate life. The amount of goodness and kindness and love in Israel is been overwhelming since October 7th and from Jews around the world. And we need to separate from these people, have nothing to do with them, and make sure that they do not live on our borders. When the 3 hostages came out on Shabbat, one of them was Sagi Dekelchen. And just this week we marked the 500th day since October 7th, and that the hostages are in captivity. But he told his wife Avital, for me and for the hostages, it's not the 500th day. Because he says, when we were in captivity, we didn't count days. We didn't even count hours. We didn't even count minutes. We counted seconds. And it's over 43 million seconds since the hostages were taken. Well, we pray and we want to see the immediate return of all the hostages and bring an end to this evil. And at the same time know that since October 7th, there have been 43 million seconds of outpouring of kindness, love, generosity, and unity from the Jewish people around the world. We will continue to be who we are, and we will make sure that such evil can never occur again. Have a beautiful day.